Coming up on the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener podcast, Joey and Holly will talk about 18 low-cost ways to start prepping, their garden tip of the week, their vegetable of the week. Their guest this week, she is AKA the Garden Girl, backyard gardener, and urban sustainable living expert, Patty Moreno, will be on the program. The link is in the show notes, and we will live December the 12th, 6 a.m. Central Standard Time on BePreparedRadio.com and downloadable from iTunes. Sponsored in part by DollarSeed.com for your flowers, vegetables, and herbs. All organic seeds, all only $1 a pack. DollarSeed.com. And by WillowSpringsSoap.com. Handmade soaps with simple, recognizable ingredients, making soaps using the cold kettle process while using traditional methods. WillowSpringsSoap.com. Winchester Gardens, with their line of new 100% all-organic fertilizer for the home gardener. Visit Winchester Gardens at wgardens.com for a store near you. Welcome to the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener Extra. I'm Joey Barrett. Well, today we're going to make some onion powder. If you've got a lot of onions and you're not sure what to do with them, this is one way of using them up. If you're in an area where it may be more humid and they don't store very well, again, you can make onion powder, or this is the same concept that you can use for garlic powder. Now, you can buy your garlic powder or your onion powder at the store, but when doing it this way, you know that it's grown organically and without pesticides. And if you read the label of the onion powder that you get at the store, it says it may contain milk, wheat, and soy. With this onion powder, it's just going to contain onions. So the process is very simple. You want to take the onions. Now, the larger the onions you have, the better they are. This is what we have that we're going to process. So we got some yellow onions, some white onions, and some red onions. So it's just very simple. You'll cut the bottoms off of them and the tops off of them, and you'll want to remove the skin because you don't want to process that. With this onion here, we're just going to remove the bigger portion of the skin here, and we'll turn the top off a little bit more, and we're going to put them in our food processor to slightly get them in more of a smaller consistency so that we can dehydrate them. And they'll dehydrate relatively quickly, and then we'll take and we'll grind them up to a fine powder. And you can peel these under your faucet if you don't like the intensity of the onions, or you can just over the holidays that you have neighbors and friends come over that you want them to leave quickly, this will be another great way to get them to exit the house. So that one's done. We'll do one more here, and then we'll get them into the food processor to get them chopped down. And there's different ways of going about making the garlic powder, and the steps that we're showing this seem to be the simplest method. Other ways, you can grind the onions up to a paste and then dehydrate it. It's totally up to you. You can do your research on which you feel is the best for the situation that you have. So now that we've got the onions chopped, peeled, we're going to chop them up in our food processor. Now you can go to a paste form, but we're going to go to a smaller diced portion. So we're just going to pulse it a couple times, and you'll just kind of see where you want to go. I think that's going to be pretty good for what we want. Small pieces, because if you get to a slime, then you're going to have to use a different method of drying with your dehydrator. Now, if you don't have a dehydrator, you can do this in the oven at a lower temperature, and you'll have to look up how you would go ahead and dry them for that application. We're going to use one tray here. We've got our herb drying plastic mesh rack here. Now, if you don't have one of these, you can go to your local craft store, and they have them. I've seen people use them that you can knit with, so that will quilt with, so that will be a good way to go about doing it. So put that down, and we're just going to take the onions and layer them on here, one layer. I'm going to pile them all up here, and then I'll spread them out. Now, this will take several hours to dehydrate based on, one, the size of the chopped onions and on the power and the heat coming out of your dehydrator. So we got most of them. So I'm just going to try to smooth these out in a somewhat level one layer form here. Now if you have, as you can see with this other rack, if you put it on there, it's just going to filter through. Now that is, you know, if you want to do that and you don't have the herb rack, you can go ahead and do that as well. But the herb rack seems to work best when drying the small chopped onions. And as these get dry, they're going to get smaller, and then you can come back in here in a couple hours and rearrange them so there's more surface area to for the air to hit. So that doesn't look too bad. I want to try to fill in all the spots there. And when doing this, you can also have a fan going to get some air circulation so you don't burn your eyes. Okay, so we're going to put the top on here, and we'll set this at the highest setting. Some dehydrators have different settings on them. We're going to set ours at the highest, and we'll be back in a few hours and then proceed with how to make the onion powder. So it's been about 8 hours since we started dehydrating these onions, and something you might want to consider is when you're dehydrating them right away, there's a very high intensity aroma coming from the onions, and it can fill the room. So what we did was we went ahead and took the dehydrator up to the attic. We've got a walk-in attic, or if you want to put this in a separate room, closed door with a window open, and the intensity will decrease as the onions get drier, but just to be aware of that. Also, the consistency we have here is exactly like you would buy to put on green bean casserole. So if you want to save some money in that route, you could dehydrate them in the ring form and save you some dollars there. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the dried onions and I'm going to put on this cutting board to filter it in our coffee grinder. Now you can use a food processor to get the onions to an onion powder consistency, or you can use a coffee grinder like we're going to. Things you want to remember: be sure you clean the coffee grinder before you use it and after you use it, otherwise you're going to have some very unhappy people in your household. So we're just going to take and put the onions in here. The only disadvantage to this is the small hopper, so we're going to have to make 2 rounds since we have a little larger batch here. And we'll just go until it gets to a powder consistency. Okay, you got some chunks there. You've got some fine powder there. So you can filter, sieve this through and make it as thin, as powdery or as chunky as you want. It's totally up to you. So we're just going to put it in here for right now, and we'll get our second batch going. Okay, so I ran it through a second time to get the powder consistency like you would find in the store-bought, and that really seemed to help. Now, a thing you want to remember, as you're grinding this, it's creating friction and heat. So you don't want to just put it in a jar and seal it up tight, because you can trap that heat and cause it to start to mold. So we're just going to put it in this canning jar here. And you can put a top on it, such as what you get with the shaker cheese that's got the holes there. So we're just going to put it on here, and we're going to let it cool down, and you've got homemade onion powder that doesn't have milk or soy or no additives. You know it's pure, you know it's organic because you grew it yourself. If you like what you see, you can subscribe and comment. I'm Joey Barrett, and this has been a Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener Extra.
For more organic gardening, visit the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com.